Hello, everyone. This is Boss Rush After Dark, the alternative podcast show from Boss Rush Network. I am LeRon Dawkins, and we've got the crew tonight. Get ready for it. First up, Stephanie Klimov, our wonderful lady boss of the Boss Rush writing team, is here with us as usual tonight. Hey, what's up, girl?
What's up? Doing great. Thanks.
Are you as tired as I am?
Yeah, I'm fighting it. And I already had one Monster Energy drink, and I don't think I can take another one. It's going to burn holes in my stomach.
Well, I'm pretty sure this guy can also agree with you on the Monster Energy drinks as well, because Corey Dierig, of course, is back with us.
I'm here, and yes, So, long story short, I just opened a second one because while you guys get to go to bed, I gotta go edit the stuff for Patreon after.
Hey, we appreciate you, man. We appreciate you.
Don't worry, I'll be thinking about you while I'm editing, and you guys can dream about me. It's fine.
You're doing the Lord's work, bro. Keep at it. And joining us tonight is someone whom you might recognize from the EXP cast. The one, the only, Stoy is in the house with us tonight. What's up, man?
While you guys are drinking Monster Energy drinks, I am a man of refined taste. And I am drinking a nice tall boy of Hams, America's classic premium beer, born in the land of sky blue waters.
Never heard of it.
I've never heard of it.
You guys are all peasants.
I thought we were nerds.
Or we just
You
live
are
on
nerds
or we
and
just,
peasants.
or we just
Nerds
live
and
on the East Coast with our own brands of microbrews
Actually,
and all that stuff.
I honestly don't think they sell this anywhere but Wisconsin. Because this is not good beer. This is not good beer. But it's like this is like a lawnmower easy drinking beer. Like this is the equivalent of a Pabst. So, I don't think Pabst tastes good. This is slightly better. So it's like an easy drinking beer, and it's what was in my Xbox fridge, which is like within arm's reach here. So, yeah, the first thing I did when I bought my Xbox fridge, I opened up the fridge, I put a Hams in it, and classed it up a bit.
Well, awesome, man. You're a man of refined taste.
Absolutely, proud of that.
All right. So I got to ask you guys a question because we've been doing this Boss Rush After Dark thing for a little while now. How do we feel when we get to this part of the day / evening / night, depending on when people listen to it or when people try to check us out?
So, spoilers. This is our fourth episode, and not a single episode has gone live yet. So, the first episode for patrons goes live this weekend as of this recording. So, I mean, I hope it's going well. I think sometimes I feel like we have more fun on this show than we do on the Boss Rush podcast, and by sometimes I mean every night we've recorded it. I think we do, but I think it's because like there's no restrictions to this show. I mean, there's no like. We don't have to talk about games. We don't have to talk about movies. We can talk about whatever we want, right? I mean, whatever we want. That's what the show is. And sometimes it's, upbeat and happy. Sometimes it's crazy. Sometimes it's, not any of those things. But I think that freedom allows us to do a lot more, and I think that makes us excited, even though we record it, kind of. Behind the scenes, we record it right after the Boss Rush podcast every week. Yeah. And even though it's like 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, sometimes when we start recording, it's like there's a lot of energy because there's a lot of freedom, and I think that makes us excited.
Yeah,
we're not restricted.
And also, I feel like as content creators for the greater part of the Boss Rush Network, I think this is a part of our therapy as. For us as a group, because like we get to hang out, we get to not be strictly like video games or strictly movies or strictly entertainment and stuff like that. We just get to be ourselves and stuff like that. Stoy, this is your first time with us tonight. How you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good. I don't know what to expect with this because this is like you guys said, it's like the whole let your hair down kind of thing, and just sit, chill, hang out. I mean, I'm sitting back, drinking a Hams with my hands up on my head, just like,
let it all hang.
Man,
I mean,
I'm feeling the vibe.
I could take my hat off on this show. Nobody would ever, care.
Hey man, you just gotta let go sometimes, man.
I know.
Well, Stoy, your boy Pat fit in real mighty nicely.
Oh, God.
Here
Pat?
Yeah, he had some things to say about it. He's like, I know a lot of things about Corey that I never thought I'd ever know. So I was like, oh, okay, all right.
He asked the question.
He did. He did.
He did.
If he didn't want to
He
know,
got
he
his
shouldn't have
answers.
asked.
Yeah.
Yo, whoa.
He got his answers.
He got answers and then some.
I think the then some is what kind of he came out with. He was like, wow, okay.
Here's the thing. There's a scene in Harold Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay where the agent guy wipes his ass and sticks the paper on the table and there's shit all over it, right? And they ask him, don't you wipe? And he says, don't ask questions that you don't want the answer to. Okay. So that's my response to Pat is don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. Okay. That's
great visual.
Yeah.
You have to that's not maybe not the metaphor I would use, but
no, it's
whatever the word is.
It's what I went with. Okay. So that's what we're going with.
Yeah.
Unedited, not editing it out whatsoever.
That's why it's called After Dark.
Yeah. We don't get down like that here after dark.
We
We
talk
get down.
wipe
We
my
get down
ass.
other things.
Talk about butts and poop and
I wipe
Quirky
my
little
ass. by the way.
penises and stuff like
Perky little things. Jesus.
Perky little thing.
Because I looked it up on the internet. Yeah, because I looked it up for the podcast, it's now constantly in these advertisements. Constantly.
You
Yikes.
shouldn't have looked it up.
Look, I thought I taught y'all better than this. Incognito mode for sure.
Incognito mode.
No cookies, no history. It won't even save your passwords.
No.
Yeah, you think I would have used it because I do use incognito mode for other things. So.
All right. Well, before we get started here, let me just go ahead and remind everybody that this is Boss Rush After Dark, the news show from the Boss Rush Network, where each and every week we get together with our friends to discuss and debate topics aimed more towards our adult audience, ranging from dating to life tragedies to travel and relationships and some other things. You know, like I said, we keep it lively here. You might be surprised what comes out of our mouths sometimes. You can get this show early on Patreon, which is patreon.com/Boss Network every Saturday, or on YouTube, podcast services, or our website 2 weeks later for free. Leave us a 5-star rating. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And remember, you can find all of our content on bossrush.net. All right, everybody. We call this our favorite night of the week, so let's show the audience why it's our favorite night of the week. What are we going to talk about tonight?
God,
I have an interesting. I have an interesting thing you want to talk about.
Okay.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe you
Let's
do.
hear it.
Let's do it.
Let's hear it. You're the guest. You're the
Now-
guest. Go.
You bring it up. We're talking about it.
I work in an operating room, right?
Mhm.
And as some of you may well know, we're in the midst of a pandemic, so that's taken a toll on hospitals. And especially in the operating room, a lot of elective procedures have been canceled because, to save on hospital staff, bed space, stuff like that, whatever. So we have a case that rolled through this week. It is an IPP procedure. You know what IPP stands for?
Something to do with the penis.
Inflatable penile prosthesis.
Ah.
We are in the midst of a
I win.
pandemic. Yeah, you almost won. So you got 25%.
Okay.
So more like 35 or whatever the math is. Anyway, so in
Anyway.
the midst of a pandemic, an old dude can't get it up anymore. So he says, this won't do. So I need something to help me. And Viagra's not working, or Cialis, or any of those other things. So if you want, I could go through the process of how to implant a penile prosthesis. Because it's literally, I've done a lot of surgeries. I've been a part of a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things. That is still the one thing I'm not a fan of.
Oh.
Seeing. I am not. No, I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to be assigned to it.
What?
Yeah.
What is it? This has to do with all the soft tissue down there in the penis?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about like cutting shit up and shoving things in and jamming things in.
Okay, first of all, isn't it kind of weird because it seems like surgery is just rough in general? Like or is that the Hollywood effect?
That's the Hollywood effect.
Okay.
Orthopedics can be a little rough because it requires a lot of hammers and a lot of screws and drills and stuff like that. Whatever. Like we actually have this big pneumatic power hammer that we use that's like this fucking big. Ooh. And it's like a pneumatic like hammer that if we're trying to hammer something, we use them in hip procedures because when you're trying to install a stem into someone's femur like this big and you're sitting there hammering it like that, like your arm's gonna get tired after a while.
Yeah.
So anyway, the installation of a penile prosthesis isn't that invasive, but it requires a lot of hooks and cutting. So basically, it's like we're talking 2 plastic or silicone rods that go up the side of the penis. Okay?
My skin is already crawling.
Yeah, I hate this already.
We're talking like, okay, all right. So we start out, we get this drape with like a hole in it, and then we pull the penis out of the hole and the scrotum, right? Okay, and that gets exposed. Whatever. So we take the penis part, right, and we flip it kind of so it's facing upwards, whatever. The back side of it is facing upwards to the ceiling. Right at the base of the penis on the bottom, we make an incision on each side, the left side and the right side. And then we start to kind of shove these large dilators into the sides because we need to make room for the silicone rods that we'll be putting in there. So we're talking like shoving these rods up there and stopping when we get to the end. Now,
just side note, side interrupt. I'm just giggling a lot because for those listening, I don't know if it's going to be audio only, but Stoy is just making a lot of gestures. Sorry.
There's definitely video to this.
Okay, all right. I'm going to try to be as animated as possible. So basically, like when you flop the penis over, we have to keep the penis where it's at, right? Like, because otherwise it moves. So what we do is when we make those incisions, we install these little fish hooks to retract the incision.
No.
There is a hook. There is a hook called the one doctor I work with. He calls it the eviscerator.
Oh God!
And he makes one of his residents do it, and he turns away. And when he turns away, I turn away because basically what that goes in the little pee-pee hole that hooks down in there and then pulls back. And yeah, you clip it to the drape so that now nothing moves. Everything.
Wait, clip it to the drape?
Yeah. So like we basically have this like ring.
I hate this so much. Everything
put
hurts
on the drape. Yeah. So okay,
the phantom pain in my it's just God.
This is why I don't like this. And I have an interesting story. I have an interesting story about this particular thing when I'm done. So after we take these long dilators, they're about like this big, whatever, and they got a little curve to it so that when you're shoving them, you don't hit the balls as you're doing it. So you're just kind of, you have clearance. So the balls are here and your hands go in here. It's actually a clever design. So you shove it to the point where all of a sudden you're thinking it's like, okay, it's about a size 7. So let's open up the size 7 things and you basically shove them in there, right? And then they have a little cone at the tip of it because obviously the tip of your penis should be somewhat, stiff. So you have to install kind of like a plastic cone at the end of it to give it that rigidity. So that. Anyway, so these silicone tubes get filled with saline, and you have to have a bag of saline, about 60 cc's worth of saline, sitting like kind of right above your hip. About, I think that's where it about sits. But that's the last part of the procedure. So, in order for the pump to work, to pump the saline to and from, you have to install a little fluid pump. And that fluid pump goes right in your scrotum. So we're talking making an incision, moving the ball to the side, and then sticking this pump that's about this big, kind of right in there, kind of tussle it in there, peck everything back together, and then you have to test it to make sure that it still works. So in order for you're a 65-year-old man, Stephanie, and you decide, you know what? Tonight's the night. Tonight's the night. You kind of grab your balls and you start pumping. Like the Reebok pumps back in the day.
No way.
And then it pops
No
up like that.
way.
Pops up like that. And you got a little release valve. We got a little release valve. That's the genius part of it. When you're done, you hit the release valve. All the saline goes back into the bag, and good to go.
Question.
Yes.
Because this is stuff inside the human body and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking that every so often that saline needs to get flushed and resupplied. Like, is that a procedure that happens, or is this permanent?
No, the saline actually can sit in your body for a while. That brings me up to another point later on. But so you'll have like a bag about like this big, whatever, just sitting in your hip, and the saline kind of goes back and forth. Now, if it was water, it'd be a different story. That's why they use saline, because it's hypoallergenic and it's actually can stay in the body for a while. Okay. However, a lot of people have problems with infection with this because coincidentally,
I'm sorry. I don't need to use my dick anymore. I'm sorry.
No,
infections aren't.
Listen. When you see this procedure being done, I never want this anymore. I'm just gonna live with my life like, well, all right, I guess that's it. I'm done.
There are other organs in my body I can use for sex.
Right. Yeah. Or you can get one of those little plastic strap-on things. Like, oh, good.
Well, I gotta say, it must be a dire situation to resort to that kind of surgery, because the Viagra stuff, like, that's pretty effective for like the majority of patients.
And also, Viagra is dangerous because now I am on freaking like blood pressure medication. I can't use Viagra if I need it.
Yeah.
Not saying I need it. Not saying I need it, by the way, but
it's already on record. It's already on record. You said it. You said it. So yeah, so basically when you're ready to go, like I said, to kind of conclude that, you squeeze your balls to get it to pump up, and then you hit the release valve to just bring it back, whatever. So the best part about this, how do you get the rods to really snugly fit at the tip? Well, you take it's called a Keith needle, about this big, like a sewing needle.
Oh.
Now you tie a string to the end of the cone part, right? And you shove it all the way up through that, and then you pull that needle right through the tip of your penis, right through the tip. And then that way it fits all the way in there. That's the best way to do it.
Oh, I hate this so
much.
Yeah.
And you do it for both sides. And it's like, we're still doing this. Still doing this.
You know the sad part about this though. I guarantee you there are people out here who elect for that surgery because they're into that body mutilation kink.
Well, I mean, listen, you can't be awake during this procedure. There's some surgeries you could be awake for. I don't recommend that for this one. No amount of epidural strength can, I think, prepare you for that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. But basically what I'm saying is like I guarantee you, like the amount of pain you wake up in, that probably gets some people off.
Doctors have to remind people to wait 2 weeks. Don't go start boning people right away.
2 weeks is all the recovery time is needed?
2 to 3 weeks, I've heard.
I'm sitting here thinking like I'm down for the count for at least 6 weeks.
I mean, I suppose that with everybody it depends, but it depends on your healing. So like, say for example, a lot of people can't get erections not because, just blood pressure or like, poor vascularization, whatever. A lot of these people are drug users, intravenous drug users. So this is where infection comes into play because they don't stop using drugs.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of these things come back infected.
Yeah.
They look even worse, and they want another one. They're like, I want another one. So you have to do, these doctors, knowing very well that these are intravenous drug users, and they haven't indicated they want to stop, but they indicate I still want another one, and I'm still willing to pay for it because no insurance company is going to pay for an inflatable penile prosthesis implant.
They're not.
So a lot of these people are paying for this out of pocket.
That's funny because isn't everything else that that's designed for the male sex drive, isn't that basically like covered by insurance?
Vasectomies are. Vasectomy reversals aren't.
Oh,
Ah!
that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Especially when you go to the doctor and you're like 48 years old and like, I got this girlfriend. She's like 22 and she wants another baby. I've already got 4 already here with my 2 ex-wives. So
it's the love of my life. It's the love of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I guess it makes sense. I'd be like, you made your decision already.
Yeah, and doctors have to comply to it, and it's not guaranteed. It's really not guaranteed. I think even vasectomies in general aren't fully guaranteed. I think it's like 1 in 8 fail.
Yeah.
So, that's not even guaranteed.
That's good to know. Anyway. Well, with Viagra and stuff, the industry standard for health insurance is usually 4 per month. So I don't know how that started. Like, who says, all right, well, sex once a week is reasonable.
Well, how long does Viagra work for? 2-3 days? One of my coworkers told me Cialis works for 3 days. I didn't
wait. So 1 dose of Cialis will last you for 3 days?
Yeah, I didn't need to know that, but
I would say that's a stretch. But hey, if it works, I'm not gonna.
Well, this just reminds me of a joke where the one where it's like if you have an erection that lasts longer than 4 hours, like you need to go consult a doctor.
That's a medical emergency.
Yeah, that really is.
Yeah,
because that blood is pooling, it ain't going anywhere, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I like to joke around and be like, if I have an erection that's lasting longer than 4 hours, like my partner's in trouble.
Yeah, right. No kidding. You're just like, get swiggity swooty, I'm coming for that booty. And
exactly.
Like, that's a problem. You're chasing him all over the house. He's like, get away from me.
It'd be like, we got to get down somehow. Come on.
Right.
Come on. Get to work.
Not done yet. So funny enough, like, I don't know if you guys there's this traveling VHS roadshow by us called Found Footage Film Fest.
He froze.
I was gonna. Okay.
Workplace accident shows.
Wait. Back that up a second. You froze. Back that up just a second.
I froze? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. So, like, there's this it's called the Found Footage Film Festival that pops through my town every now and then, and they find these old VHS tapes with it's like the old cringy like workplace accident tapes or like old like workout tapes or whatever. So they found, I was there with a couple buddies of mine. This was years ago. They found a instructional videotape on how to use a inflatable penile prosthesis implant, whatever. And everyone in the crowd's going nuts, like, oh, that's how it works. Oh God. And like, I go to my buddy, I was like, stone face. I was like, that's actually pretty normal. I actually was scrubbed into that procedure just this week. And he looked at me, he's like, really? You put those in? I was like, well, I don't put them in, but I help. And we actually got to meet with the organizers at a bar. And I had to tell this exact same process I told you guys to a bar full of like 30, 40 people. And like, I'm actually I'm using diagrams because everyone wanted diagrams. So I was like, okay, all right. So, here's the PP, here's the little balls. Okay. So it was kind of funny that like I had a group of like 40 people enthralled with this penile prosthesis implant.
Man.
So anyway, in the midst of a pandemic, some old dude wants to get a nut.
Okay.
I mean, you got to applaud him for effort, I guess, so.
Right, and he's got to do something during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. And that's the thing, because we've had this conversation before. It's like, how important is this? And, for some people, like having healthy sex lives are pretty important for mental health because, it's, you can't argue against that. Some people can live without it for long periods of time. Some people can't. And it's like, you have to do what you can for that patient. It's kind of the gray area of healthcare. Like the whole thing with like serving people who just continuously use drugs or continuously using alcohol, abusing alcohol. It's like, why should I spend hours trying to save you when you can't save or protect yourself. And that's such a gray area of healthcare that it's just like, we all know it, but it's like we still have this obligation to do what we can for that patient who can't help themselves.
Yeah, no, it's this isn't, the same therapeutic class or whatever, but that was a big debate amongst various health insurances when a lot of the oral hepatitis C agents got approved by the FDA, where you could basically cure. It was like a 97% cure rate for hepatitis C, and they're pills. They're not these horrible injections that make you feel depressed all the time.
Yeah.
And the part of the criteria that was debated, and I don't think now, but at the time, was attesting that if you're an active drug user, IV drug user, you need to attest that you won't be, because it's a reinfection risk. Mm-hmm. But then there's arguments on both sides. Well, then you're I don't know if discriminate is the right word, but like against those people. But at the same time, it is a health concern. Like, we really don't want to treat you if you're gonna reinfect. So it's tough, very gray.
The hard part about something like that is, like, people are addicts, and like, even though like they may have the best intentions of not getting back on it, something that could potentially like threaten their lives and stuff like that, at the end of the day, like sometimes the craving for the addiction just wins out, and like you don't intentionally put yourself back at that risk, but you wind up doing it because it's an addiction habit, stuff like that, So yeah, I understand that. I do feel sorry for people that wind up in those situations and things like that, because addiction and like the behavior pattern behind addiction, like that's something you can't really for an extent you can control if you become an addict, but once you become an addict, you can't really control that. Like it takes a lot of work.
Well, yeah. And most addicts, like, they have. I mean, it's one thing to say like nicotine is addictive, or heroin is addictive, alcohol is addictive. Like, by its nature, it can be, but there's something that draws those people to seek solace in those addictions. Yeah. And that's where a lot of times addictions become misdiagnosed or mistreated, because you're not solving the problem of why that person's addicted. You're solving the problem of like, well, just quit the alcohol. You'll be fine after that. Yeah, well, there's an underlying reason behind why that person puts down 18 or 20 of these a night. There's an underlying problem that they need to have solved or fixed. And that's when the addiction starts to fall off a bit, because, that's kind of where we're failing a lot of addicts.
Yeah, the relapse rate is high, and if for some reason you can get them to stop doing one thing, they just might grasp onto some other addiction. It's one thing or another. It could be like gambling or sex or something like that,
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't expect the conversation to go that deep, but I mean, we could talk for circles around the problem, but yeah, I mean, that's always been kind of like the gray area of healthcare. It's like, well, you still have to help these people.
Yeah.
You still have to help them. And admittedly, even like Stephanie, this may segue into your topic that you want to talk about, but during the pandemic, domestic abuse was on the rise. Family abuse was on the rise. Drug use was on the rise. Alcoholism was on the rise. So I would see a lot of trauma patients in my last place I worked at, like just, not in good shape because of drugs. Like, and even people like one of my friends lost his sister because her rehab clinic shut down because of COVID protocols. And that ultimately killed her. It ultimately killed her. And it made me upset for him to tell me that. Like, I was just like upset. I was like, I can't believe that we let those things happen. You know?
Yeah.
And when those people that needed help the most, it's like we couldn't do anything. And that's the most frustrating part, is that, what happens when you don't help those people? Well, then they die. And then we sit and kind of find blame on why it failed, or maybe it's their fault, or maybe it's some other person's fault or whatever. But that doesn't save the fact that person's not here anymore. That person was trying to do something with their life, and they're not here anymore.
And the irony is that, especially in the beginning when it was actual lockdown, liquor stores were considered an essential business.
Essential.
It was essential business because it pandered to the alcoholics. That was the problem, is that when you relapse on alcohol, it's terrible. It's really bad.
Yeah, it's
becomes
catastrophic.
It's catastrophic to a point. So I think that was their intention behind it. It was a stupid intention, but that's their reasoning.
Yeah.
So I mean, during the pandemic, a lot of people have kind of found different things to do, because there was nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Well, I
Anyway.
certainly learned something new tonight. Thank you, Stoy.
No problems. Stephanie, I
I
don't
did
recommend
too.
you get a penile prosthesis implant.
Okay.
I know for sure I'm not getting a penile prosthesis implant. Like as much as I like sex, I'll find other alternatives to getting my rocks off.
Yeah. No kidding. So, ugh. How's
If I
Corey
can't-
doing? I haven't seen him pop up.
Yeah.
I'm just, really trying to like not think about it.
Yeah.
I
Kind
mean,
of.
if I can't use my wang, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm like 46 years old. I've had a good run.
Yeah. I've got plenty of other hobbies.
That's kind of one thing as a woman, I always wanted to know what it's like to be super turned on, but my hardware doesn't work. Like I can't, does not compute in my brain.
Well, I
It
mean, I always wonder what frigidity is like for women. Like women that can't get sexually aroused to the point where they actually enjoy it. I wonder about that sometimes. Okay. You know what? I'll put myself out there for a second. There have been times when I've wound up in the headspace to where the body chemistry just won't work.
Mhm.
I've been in that headspace, every once in a while. One of the problems I have is I get into a headspace where I worry about my partner, and then it kind of takes me out of the mode sometimes. And it's like, wow, I feel like I feel like they're not getting it, and then all of a sudden I'm no longer getting it because I started worrying about them. And that's honestly one of the sexiest things you want to have happen to you, honestly. But at the same time, it's like, shit. I just lost the wood.
Yeah. So I also never forget my very first time she cried. That killed the mood almost instantly, because I'm like, what the hell is happening? This isn't how it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Wait,
But
first
she
time
would-
having sex?
Yeah, she
Oh.
cried because she it was like she wanted a relationship, but I didn't. And we had this conversation multiple times. It was just a long story, but yeah, it was just awkward.
Ooh, the crying, yeah.
Yeah,
Man,
it was. Yeah.
Man, I don't want to ask too many questions, because the way you said that is like who's the jerk?
She was. I probably was, honestly, but because I've encountered that before in past relationships where kind of like to what you said, if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. You just you got to let it go. And some people just can't, because they start to get in that mode of well, I could do this, I could do that, I could be this, and it's like, no, you're not understanding. So that was one of those issues where we were still close, and we always talked about doing it, and it just happened one way or another. She called me and says, hey, my parents aren't home, and I was like, I hopped in my Volvo and I got there, and yeah, just
Well, you know what? I'm glad you guys are talking about it, because I think more women need to understand, because I came from a place of ignorance and I thought it was like a switch. Hey, why isn't it working? I thought you guys just are like that 90% of the time anyway. And I would get super self-conscious, to my own fault. I'm growing out of it finally, but I would think it's clearly me. It's clearly me and my fault, and I'm not doing it for this guy.
No, there's been times where there have just been times where if I was super depressed about something, and I went through a phase, we talked about it a couple episodes ago, where I lost someone, and then I started kind of being a real dick about dating women, and kind of not trying to get attached to anybody, but still wanting to do whatever. And there were times where I was so depressed and so down that it just nothing was working, even to the point where the things I was doing to try to make myself happy wasn't working. And that included maybe a one night stand, or, you know what I mean? and it just wasn't working, you know. And it's just like, oh well, this is awkward, I guess. And then, but I mean, it's just something you kind of move on from. But yeah, it's and then sometimes you just aren't attracted to the person, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's just like Stoy said, it's just like you don't want anything, you know, and that's perfectly okay too, you know. So
yeah, I mean, it's it does happen on both sides, because I know of it. I mean, I've heard about it and experienced it from the female perspective, kind of like what you said, Stephanie, where there's a lot of times there's so much emotion wrapped up in sex that it's like sometimes we get so obsessed with our own that we never even stop to consider what the other person's thinking or feeling, or whatever. So like, especially at that time when she started crying, I didn't understand. I didn't know what was going on. Like, I remember I tried to probe her like that entire day, because I took her out to dinner that night, and oh my God, that was the most awkward dinner of my life. But it was like I tried to understand and talk to her, and she wouldn't open up. We ended up actually circling back. We talked about it a little bit more, and she kind of gave me more insight onto what she was feeling at that time. But, you know, we were older, and I think we understood more of each other, and or understood more of the world. But yeah, it was you know, being open and honest, I guess, about like even when you're not feeling it, I think is important.
Yeah.
The more you know.
Yeah.
The more you know.
Yeah. Man, we got all that deepness out of reconstructing a 65-year-old man's penis.
Yeah,
well,
thanks, Stoy. Look at that.
Hey, no problem. I mean, you know, you got to start somewhere, I guess.
When did this procedure go down again? How long ago did you do this?
I've done it quite a few times in my career. So, but like,
and this is the one you absolutely hate.
Yeah, this is probably my least favorite one. I've seen beating hearts. I've seen hearts stopped. I've caught buckets of blood, like literally held a bucket and caught blood. Like I've broken limbs. I've seen bombed out. Man, I've seen everything. I've had.
Wait. You've seen what? What?
I've caught buckets of blood. I've seen. What did I say after that?
You said bombed out and then you stopped.
Bombed out bones. Bombed out bones.
Okay.
It just. You know, sometimes when people fall, man, they don't just break a leg. They gotta like do like a pirouette spin thing, and like completely shatter their bones into pieces. Ugh. And like, man, it's like, how the hell did you do this? Good Lord, I was just taking out the garbage.
And it's the good old ragdoll physics.
Yeah, were you playing Grand Theft Auto at the time? Jesus.
You know. Quickly, I'll tell you my only operating room story. I was on rotations at Mass General, but I got to like look at and see other things. And I got one day in the OR, and I forgot what the procedure was, which is fine. Like, not gonna, go into details because you can't. But I just know that it involved using a laser to make incisions in the skin.
The bovie?
I don't know. But all I know is that the smell of essentially burning flesh made me want to puke. It is the worst smell I have ever smelled. I would rather, just thinking about it makes me want to puke. All right.
Well, I'll tell you, you'll get used to it.
Nope, I don't want to.
I mean, I know you don't want to, but eventually you get used to it. I mean, there's a lot of smells that you end up getting used to. Some you can't, like infections. Some infections I can't.
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay.
Like infections have a smell?
Well, because
I guess they do because of pus. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, say for example, like a couple weeks ago, we did an amputation. We amputated this guy's lower leg, and it was bad. And it was like he poked his finger into the ankle, and it was just gray shit came out.
Oh.
And he's like, "Yeah, that's infection," and it just wafted the room. And it was like, oh God.
Oh Jesus.
Do yourself a favor and never Google necrotizing fasciitis.
Ooh, that's bad. That's a bad.
Okay. Fasciitis, that's muscle, right?
It's underneath your skin. That's kind of like a layer underneath your skin.
Yeah, fascia. That's right.
And imagine what necrotizing.
Dead. Yeah. So don't. I won't.
Moving on.
Who's got the next topic for us?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I can get over that though. Oh gosh, I can see it. Okay, anyway. Well, yeah, just oh gosh.
Boobs. Right? Go to the subreddit eye bleach. That's always a good one to hit up.
No. Pass.
We look
Pass.
at
Pass.
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. All right. Don't fall for it.
Hey, if you're a brave enough patron out there, and you want to let us know what's up with us, hit us up on our Discord. We would.
Yeah.
Just don't give us graphic details. Just let us know if you've been there.
Instant ban if you post pictures.
Yeah, for real. For real, and there's no getting out.
don't...
And there's no getting out of jail. You will not get an appeal.
Yep.
Ugh,
Wow.
gross.
Okay. I have no good transition for this. Like none. I don't.
Stephanie played a naughty
don't need
video game. We could talk about that.
Oh yeah, brief transition. I played probably like an hour of it, so I'm not very far in it. It's called Prison Princess. Let me see if I could pull up a little. It was on sale. This is a follow-up from our first episode talking about naughty video games. So, and on the image, it's just two busty princesses. One looks like a girly girl. One looks like an emo chick. So you gotta have both kinds.
The
Oh, wait,
Nintendo Switch is like full of these games.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Lead two captured princesses to solve puzzles and escape the Demon King's castle. Your actions alone as a hero will decide their fates and your own. A ghostly sliver of your former self. Can you rescue the princesses? So that in itself does not sound terrible, but just the images, it's just everything that you can kind of imagine of just borderline hentai stuff. So like there's a part where one of the princesses, well, first of all, you like wake up and you're in a prison cell with one of them, and she just full on gratuitous up view of her skirt. And then you have to help her escape the room, and she climbs on this statue of a horse, and then it turns on and you can just see everything jiggling, and you need to find a way to make it stop. So,
You're telling me you only played an
Yeah.
hour of this game?
yeah, I
Surprised you played that long.
I was curious. I mean, it's all part of it involved. It's you still have to solve puzzles. It's like an escape room type game, and that's kind of actually what's like made me take a pause to it. I'm like, I thought this was going to be brainless. Like I really thought this was going to be brainless, but I really want to see how bad.
No,
it gets.
boobs are
I
hard work.
really do.
It's hard work.
So yeah, that's my report on Prison Princess. So stay tuned for additional reports as I progress through this journey.
Where's the Let's Play of Prison Princess, Stephanie? Where is it?
Okay.
Where is it?
I'll do it.
Oh, God.
That'll be another Patreon exclusive. And that'll be a Patreon exclusive, I think. Bonus content.
Bonus content. Oh, God.
Hey, that wildlife game that we talked about in our episode is technically the demo's free. And I'm still trying to find a place to post that gameplay video. Pornhub
You
is
still
being
not
very
approved by
fickle.
Pornhub?
No, we're not approved by Pornhub. Can you believe that shit?
Dear Lord, that's so hypocritical.
It's funny
It really
because I look at the crew at EXP Cast and I'm like, what's taking them so long to get approved?
Yeah.
I know, yeah. I'm like
you guys have practically every flavor that people can imagine out there on Pornhub.
mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Okay.
I'm actually checking right now to see if I can post anything. Nope, not approved yet.
That's crazy.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. I don't understand.
It's because you weren't
So-
flopping it around when you were recording. You know what I mean?
Was I making too many hand gestures of penises, and they were like, "We can't have that on."
There's no porn in this
platform.
video. We need.
Yeah, maybe it's not explicit enough.
Maybe, yeah.
Oh, goodness, I don't
I have to
know.
work a little bit harder.
So do you guys still want to maybe chat about the Rona a little bit.
Yeah. Let's chat
sure if you
about
guys are
some
feeling
Rona.
Yeah. I'm game for more medical topics.
Yeah.
Okay, because like, here's the thing: the pandemic started, or at least came sweeping into the United States and caused a shutdown in March of 2020. It's been a hot topic, in politics especially, and in the medical community, and in the social media dumbass community, to the point where I do feel a lot of people have COVID fatigue, meaning they're sick and tired of, no pun intended for all these words, of talking about it, yet people still talk about it. And, there was a bit of hope in the summer of 2021, but now we're hitting this huge surge via Omicron. And I'm not sure if there's anything you guys particularly want to hit on, but I do want to talk about it because it's really getting me down, guys. I'm very frustrated. I don't feel like I can go to the movies very comfortably unless there's only like 2 other people in there. And Omicron, even though it's not as serious, quote unquote, as the other variants, especially if you're vaccinated, it's highly virulent. And I don't think enough people talk about it, but statistically, at least 1/3 of people that get COVID, even if they have no symptoms, can have long hauler syndromes. And I don't know why no one else is not afraid. Like, that's what I'm afraid about. I talked to some people, I call them friends, who are, and like they refuse to get the vaccine. I'm like, you're part of the problem. But they're like, oh, well, because you barely get sick. I'm like, dude, do you not know what could happen if you're a long hauler? I know a couple people that are long haulers, and it sucks. I'm gonna stop there before I continue ranting. Like, I can't.
Here's what I can tell you. Like, I definitely have COVID fatigue. Like, I'm one of those people. Like, I'm all for science. Like, so like when these studies come out or medical authorities say this or whatnot, I stand behind the science and stuff. And I just sometimes just want to go fucking vigilante on some of these people out here because it's like you're the main ones complaining about the fact that we have to wear a mask, we have to stay in the house, we have to be 6 feet plus apart from people and stuff like that, and you want to take the first fucking step to get this thing out of our lives, and it just makes me angry. Like I was telling you guys before we started the show tonight that because of how people are set in their ways and stuff, like a weekly business meeting that I have to do, we had the opportunity to say, hey, we will go virtual this week for it. And people were just afraid of technology, so they didn't want to do virtual. So we wound up being forced to go back to go into an in-person meeting this week, the first week of January, where, like there's a spike in COVID cases here in my state. And so the place that we're supposed to meet at, like, that place is closed because guess what? They're doing their job and not trying to spread the pandemic and everything, right? So like the Weisenheimers of the organizers who decide they wanted to have our meeting and stuff, they're like, hey, we're gonna go meet at IHOP. Really? We're gonna go to a restaurant that probably is not having any restrictions right now on social distancing and stuff. We want to go there, and I'm sitting here having anxiety because like we're about to be in basically a super spreader event, and guess what? Sure enough, like IHOP was fucking slammed. I'm tired, y'all. I really am. I haven't I've had a couple of close calls, where I've gotten sick and like have been negative, whatnot. I had a very bad sinus infection in over the summer that everyone thought I had COVID. And I was like, no, this is a sinus infection here. I'm gonna blow my nose and I'm gonna show you exactly what the mucus looks like, and you will know it's a sinus infection and stuff like that. But I'm just tired of dodging around like the whole thing, and the sad part is like I'm one of those people that, even when they say, hey, you can stop wearing the mask now, like I have a funny feeling I'm going to wear the masks a little bit longer because, I like not having the flu these past 2 years. I like that. I like that, like I had a really mild cold, and one sinus infection in the past 2 years. So whereas usually like over, every year I have at least 3 colds, and I may catch the flu at the end of the year and stuff like that, But this is I don't know. Like if life and death isn't like scaring these people, or like getting these people to take the message and stuff like that, I don't know what will, And I'm also tired of like you guys won't get fucking vaccinated, but you will sure as hell get on social media and like cry to us about like the fact you lost 18 family members this past year, because of a controllable disease.
Yeah. You know what feels a lot of not. Well, some, and I unfortunately know I'm close to one person who just really gets wrapped up in a lot of conspiracy theories. Now I'm all for and just listening for entertainment, and sometimes some make you wonder, like, hey, is there government involvement to make money with vaccines? Like, ultimately, we're not going to know, but none of it's founded on actual proof or evidence. And even if that were the case, as a pharmacist, because I know about peer-reviewed articles and I know about clinical trials, like regardless of the money makers, like that's beyond me. All I know is that the science is still there. The vaccines are still there to prevent a disease that is real. Whether or not it was engineered and specifically released intentionally, broke out of a lab, or came from bats, like it doesn't matter. The point is we're in it. There is a virus, and the virus is real, regardless of how it came about and all this. It's just the conspiracy theories drive me fucking nuts. I can't.
One thing that's always bothered me though, like it's like everybody forgot the lessons they learned about communicable diseases in 8th grade biology. Everybody forgot this shit. Like it's not that hard. Like if you have the common sense to know that using a water fountain you can catch a cold, you should already know the other basics. Like anything can become airborne. Anything can be picked up off of contact surfaces and stuff like that. Why are you stop being stupid?
Yeah, and like we have I think I mentioned this like last episode or a couple episodes ago. I don't know, whenever the last time we talked about this. Like I have a cousin who is very anti-vax, very anti, she's, I think I mentioned it then too, but she probably, if she could have afforded it, she would have been at the January 6th thing at the Capitol. Like she's that kind of person. And I'm not afraid to say that about her. Like everybody in the family feels that way, but like she's very anti-vax, and like right before Christmas. So this is where it gets kind of really pisses me off, is that, so long story short, my other cousin, her sister, there's 5 kids in that family. My one cousin has stage 4 cervical cancer, and this was probably the last Christmas we were going to be able to spend together. So when this publishes, I don't know if she's still alive or not. I hope she is. I mean, we all have hope, but like, I mean, things happen and things don't always turn out the way you want them to. And, I'm not trying to like complain about that or anything. That's life. We have to go through these hurdles, but like, it's been like 4 or 5 years since we've all been together for Christmas. And this was like our last chance to all be together for Christmas as a family, all the cousins together, just, because we don't know if she's going to be here next Christmas or not. And not only is she not vaccinated, she went out with somebody who was COVID positive at one point the week before Christmas. Her son tested positive for COVID and had the balls to take her kids to church that weekend.
Oh my gosh.
COVID positive. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why? You're the problem.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? This was our last chance as a family to like be together, and you totally ruined it. You ruined it. And like, don't get me wrong, everybody that was there had a great time, and we were all like happy to be together and see each other and stuff. But like, when you do something like that and you knowingly doing it, and like all she wants is like attention and all eyes on her, and she's one of those people that goes on Facebook and complains about everything, and I'm the best at this, and whatever. She's done a lot of shitty things, which I am not afraid to talk about on this podcast, but I'll save it for another time.
That's just negligent.
Yeah. And it's like,
Yeah.
and she was mad that we wouldn't let her come over for Christmas. And it's like, I'm like,
It's your damn fault.
I'm like, your sister just went through 3 bouts of chemotherapy. You
Yeah.
literally being in the same room could kill her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, don't be that person. We know you're that person all the time. This was not the time to be that person. And like, you know, now, like, I don't know. I mean, it just really sucks. And like now, I mean, a totally different story. Like my wife's side of the family all has it, like all tested positive, and they're all vaccinated. Parents are boosted. The kids are old enough to be vaccinated, right? And they all have it, you know. And like, I've taken 3 take-home tests this week, and like I've been like this really sick this week, and to the point where like I think I probably have it, even though it says negative, because those take-home tests are really bad with the Omicron version of this thing. And I've been working from home all week. It's the first time I've ever worked from home in my life. But it's like, I'm not going to go risk people at work. Now, granted, everybody at work's working from home this week and probably next week. But like, this thing's everywhere. And it's I don't care if it's like not as bad, especially if you're vaccinated. It's still like this terrible thing that's going around. And I'm really tired. I'm really sick. LeRon, you mentioned it too. Like, I'm really sick of this being the 3rd year of us having to go through this thing where like if everybody would just shut their mouths and stayed home for like a couple weeks to a month when this thing first started, it would have been over. And like, if everybody got vaccinated and just like was careful for a couple weeks, it would have been over. You know, it's ridiculous.
And you know what? Oh, go ahead, Stephanie, because I will go on a tear. Like I will. Like
I always will too. Well, all I was going to say is, again, with the Omicron and anyway, I'm talking about the long haul stuff. Another reason people need to care about this is it still needs to be peer reviewed, because I'm really big on actual facts and reliable information. So it's still, but a recent study is now finding one of the possible long hauler effects is the antibodies that your body produces from the virus, post-virus, has like almost like autoimmune properties, meaning these antibodies also have the ability to attack your own cells, which will lead to earlier signs of arthritis or something like that. So like, I'm looking at all these people that won't get vaccinated or don't give a shit, and I'm like, well, you don't know, like in maybe 5-10 years, every single joint in your body is gonna fucking kill. What are you gonna think then? And I know a lot of the excuses from the anti-vaxxers are, well, it clearly doesn't work. People are getting infected with the vaccine. And I'm like, again, it's not foolproof. It might still protect some, or if you do get infected, the viral load will be lower. So like, just because I'll stop.
Here's
your turn.
Here's where I get those people, you know. If it's a vaccine, that means you can still contract it, but it means that you have better protection and better safeguards against the dangerous effects of it. If it's an inoculation, that means you will never catch it no matter how much you comes into contact with it. And people don't understand that, you know, like it's a vaccine just means that you have at least a less of a likelihood of catching it and suffering from it.
Yeah. And Stoy, I know that you work in the medical field and you're going to nursing school, so I don't know if you kind of feel this way. I mean, even you, Corey and LeRon, because you guys like have that like well deep-seated educated minds. But one of my pet peeves as a pharmacist, I went to school for 6 years to get my PharmD, are people who are not in the medical field that go on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and they act like they know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless you're a doctor, nurse, PA, medical assistant, don't act like you fucking know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the one thing I will agree on is like, you know, like you can do whatever you want as long as the decisions you made are informed decisions, you know.
Right.
If you feel for what if you've been informed that any of these vaccinations for COVID, if you've been informed by a professional, any of these vaccinations for COVID could put you at risk, you've made the informed decision right there to not take it. But an informed decision isn't like for the stupid ass shit like we heard Nicki Minaj saying that her cousin's balls swelled up 4 times the size of like the norm after he got the vaccine. That's not informed. No, that sound honestly, it sounds like he already had an STD when this shit happened.
Yeah, could have been a coincidence with timing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when people complain about getting sick off the vaccine, it's like it's showing that it works. The problem I always have, and generally I ignore the people that think they know of it all, because admittedly I don't know it all, and none of you guys know it all. There's a lot of people out there that are much smarter than us that know more about how to disseminate through all this data and all these findings and everything like that. I do have a problem with, and Stephanie, I don't know if you could speak to this, is some of the peer-reviewed data that has come out lately has been a little bit like, that's what we call peer-reviewed now, is looking at a few questionnaires and thinking this is peer review. Like, I'm not a fan of that. I'm a fan of more like practical science and measuring techniques, as opposed to just having people filling out a questionnaire and then trying to correlate the data. But that's a whole nother point altogether. Forget where I was going with this, but I tend to ignore those people because they don't see it, and the problem is that they don't want to listen. Don't want to look for the answers, because the way I look at people sometimes is people are more emotionally feeling driven as opposed to rational. So when they see a virus going out, they think to themselves, not in my lifetime, not in this world that we live in. We can't be subjected to this deadly virus. That's crazy. Nothing about this makes sense in my own world. So it doesn't feel right to them to have to kind of take precautions when they go outside, or to try to not take their loved ones to church, because especially if they feel sick. Well, I don't feel sick, but you still have it. Like, they don't feel like it's, a bother. So they don't feel like it makes sense to them. They don't think, people most of the time don't think rationally. And that's kind of always been the problem that I've had lately of people, is like, the answers are out there, but you don't want to look for them. You don't want to do the research. We had a discussion with a nurse at work one time who argued about the vaccine, who said, well, they're not collecting data on the vaccine side effects. And in the matter of 2 minutes, another nurse in the room pulled up the data on the CDC website and said, here it is right here. Here it is right here. Look at it. So she grabs the phone, she looks at it, and she's like, all right, you're right. That's where it is. And she, obviously rationally said, okay, I'm wrong. I can change my mind. Being wrong about something doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person. It's just you have to find the answers. But 9 times out of 10, most people aren't going to find the answers. They're going to want to go to those groups, go to those people that are going to validate their own feelings, their own answers.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah, confirmation bias. That's exactly where I was going to go, because, it's so prevalent in that nowadays, if you have some crackpot theory or some crackpot idea, you can find a Facebook group, you can find a Reddit group or a subreddit or something like that that's going to validate and make your point even stronger. And those are the people that you can't argue with. And that's why I don't. I don't. Because I'm friends with a lot of people like this. I have family members that are like this. And I don't engage with it. I don't talk about it because it's not worth my time. It's not worth my time. And if they're going to put themselves at risk and their loved ones at risk, that's not my problem. That is their problem. It could be heartless on my part, especially me working in healthcare and seeing COVID patients, operating on COVID patients, and seeing people die. Like, it's not worth it for me to go off on them about it.
Yeah, and you know what, Stoy? I don't think it's heartless. I think if we want to circle back to kind of feeling the burnout, COVID burnout, and it going on 3 years, it's at a point where we kind of need to take care of ourselves mentally. And if you invest all your emotion and energy into telling people off and being constantly concerned about trying to change these people's minds about their conspiracy theories, you're just going to burn out yourself. I think
you're not going to.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
going to,
And
because
that's
like
kind of
we said,
yeah.
they're going to retreat back to their safe spaces, back to their people, and confirm their bias even more to go after it, instead of having a decent dialogue of saying, hey, convince me I'm wrong. If you can provide evidence to convince me I'm wrong, I'm more than happy to hear it. You know, no one's like that.
So that's kind of how I've been dealing with my COVID fatigue. Is I've given up a long time ago to try and do any convincing. I scroll past anything that people step on a pedestal, or not pedestal, soapbox about, and I honestly ignore it. And I know it sounds like I don't know how to say, like,
Yeah, it sounds like you're being insensitive, but you basically turned it off.
yeah. And I just got to do what I got to do to keep
Yeah.
myself and my family safe, you know?
I mean, that's fair though, right? I mean, the whole thing is like, you just want to keep people safe. And when people are, you know, being irresponsible on purpose, it just like, it angers you, because all you want to do is keep, like, if something ever happened to my wife or my kids because somebody was being irresponsible, I mean, I would do what any parent would. I'd be pissed off. I'd go after that person. I'm like, come on. Like, it's a shot in the arm. You know, it's not like somebody's asking you to remove a body part. It's not like somebody's asking you to, like, you know, give up your firstborn child or anything. It's just a shot, a free shot that you get. Your biggest inconvenience, you have to drive to the local Walgreens so some person can stick you in the arm twice, right?
Oh, but you don't know what's in the vaccine, says the people that eat hot dogs and food with colored dye in it.
I enjoy a good hot dog. Okay.
No, I'm just saying, like, the people like, oh, we don't know what's in a vaccine. It could be bad for you, but people will eat processed foods and drink alcohol, do drugs. I'm like, okay.
I mean, and that's the problem where I get to, is that they don't know. They don't want to look it up. All you got to do is go on the internet, type in Pfizer vaccine ingredients, Moderna vaccine ingredients, J&J, type in ingredients. They're all there. They're all there. There's so much data, and like, even like people saying, like, how could it have been done this fast? We're talking 20 years of development for this particular vaccine has already been done well before this COVID-19 even hit the United States. So that's where, you know, it's the answers are out there, but you don't want to look it up because it doesn't make you feel right. Or it doesn't confirm what you've been saying this whole time. And these people are afraid to be wrong. These people are afraid to admit defeat, to say, I was wrong.
Right? Or they'll come up with an excuse being like, well, they're lying.
They're lying. Yeah, exactly. They're lying, or it's false news, or whatever.
Fake news.
Fake news.
Yeah. How are you guys gonna, try and cope with year 3? I'm gonna temper my expectations, but I do have a little bit of hope, a little bit of glimmer of hope for 2022. Not saying it's gonna magically go away. I'm thinking it's gonna trend more to being endemic, but
well, we kicked the Spanish flu in 3 years. And that was without a vaccine.
Yeah.
And the Spanish flu was a lot more virulent.
You know, the main thing I take solace in is the fact that COVID is now a pandemic of the unvaccinated. I take solace in that, because
100%. Actually, more like 90%. Because I think like the hospitalization rate is like 85 to 15, 85 unvaccinated.
Yeah. There's only so much that I can do. Like, I will try my best to keep myself protected, my family, my friends, my loved ones, from being infected and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, if it's your life, do what you want to do with it, and things like that. Like, just know. And here's the sad part. The scary thing about it is, like, like, you get COVID, you recover from it. They don't know what the long-term ramifications are, on your organs and your body system, and this is at worst if you catch it you're not vaccinated and your body gets ravaged from it, and things like that, like I just saw in the news, I want to say it was World News Tonight, like they were talking to some people that were a year one infectee from COVID and how their lives have changed, and it is horrifying, like how their lives have changed, and when I say their lives have changed, I'm not talking about like the fact that they may have lost somebody in their life, but what has happened to their bodies, like chronic issues, things like that, and stuff like that did not have to happen.
Yeah. I actually have a very close friend. He's like my best friend. He caught COVID because he just works a job that involves people commuting, so he sees a lot of people. Got COVID. COVID itself wasn't too bad. Now he's out of work. He's on disability because he has these horrible heart palpitations, really bad vertigo, just constantly dizzy, and he never had that, no like health condition pertaining to that prior to COVID. And he's like in some COVID studies in the Boston hospital systems because they're trying to see how long he has to put up with that. We don't know if it'll be lifelong, but he's like, he can't even work out. Like his body gets overly fatigued with the mildest of exercises. Mm-hmm. Like his whole lifestyle changed.
That's a shame.
And like, I totally forgot until you just said that, Stephanie. Someone that like I used to podcast with a long time ago, a few times. Like, I mean, you guys might have heard of him. I don't know if you, Bobby Paul's the Nintendo guru. Like he passed away with complications from COVID. He was in the hospital for months.
Yeah.
And like he like his YouTube channel totally blew up in like 2018 or 2019, and in 2020 he passed away. And I didn't know him quite as well as a lot of my friends did. Like I mean I really only talked to him a few times. We've been on podcasts together or anything, but like he was an important part of like what I guess we used to call like the indie podcast space, where like Secret Friends Unite and the podcast group I used to be part of, and Warp Whistle, which is that kind of got absorbed into Secret Friends, and Phoenix Overdrive. There's just like this small group of people who would always kind of like collaborate with each other, and he was a big part of that, and he built such a huge community and huge following, and he passed away from complications from COVID before we were able to get vaccines and stuff, and it impacted so many people to the point where like major outlets were writing about his death. Like there's a big article on Nintendo Life about him. And his impact on people, and I know a lot of people that I still talk to today, I still think about him all the time, and it's like, man, this has affected so many people in so many different ways that we're tired of talking about it, but we're tired of talking about it because it's affecting people in real ways.
Yeah,
but it's still nice to talk about it because there's that other dark side of the pandemic, is not just the infection itself, but mental health has taken a toll on just about everybody. And we're especially kids too. Like that's maybe a whole nother topic for another day, because I feel like that could go on forever. But people mentally, it's not natural for us to be cooped up all the time. It's not natural for us to, for example, always wear a face covering and not see facial expressions. But obviously it's necessary. I'm just saying, like, it takes a toll. And we got to make sure we all do our best to kind of continue to seek therapy or start therapy or find hobbies to help cope with it. Could be video games, could be anything. Like during the 2020 lockdown, I started gardening, which I never probably would have wanted to do or did well before, but it was so therapeutic because it was outdoors, fresh air, meditative. I don't know where I would have done without it. Plus my therapist, but
yeah, it's wild out there, man. Everybody be careful, please. I mean, be responsible, right? And just be responsible, I don't know, just bothers me.
Yeah, be responsible, science, facts, and be open-minded. I seems like basic stuff, but
I would say if you're unsure, Google, this stuff, but you know what? People don't even Google correctly because like they take the first thing they see at face value and they don't, you know. It's just like how'd you pass classes going when you were in school? You did the research, and you didn't just pick up the first thing because like your teachers are called bullshit on you if you pick up the first thing and you just regurgitate that shit, like the same stuff that we did for 12 years of schooling, 13 years of schooling, like that shit still works in this day and age and stuff like that. Like it's your life, it's your health, it's your family and stuff like that. You got to care about something. Just I guarantee you if people's dogs and cats were dying of COVID, people would be taking more action.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the first news stories to come out to say dogs can't catch COVID, and every dog mom was like, "Oh, thank God."
Yeah.
Ugh, gosh.
I'm going to tell you though that there is a lot of good news in this whole thing. It's hard to see the silver lining of all this, but especially since sometimes it hits close to home to all of us. But there is a lot of good news in the things of, vaccination rates have obviously skyrocketed. I think 73% of the U.S. population is actually vaccinated. Mm-hmm. And that's a great number from like 6 months ago, where it was like, I think sitting at like 50. And deaths have been, even though numbers have spiked, deaths have not. Deaths have actually maintained a steady course. It's not to say it's good, because one death is bad. But the fact that even though rates have skyrocketed in not only hospitalizations, but in infections, most symptoms have been mild and deaths have basically stayed stagnant. So there's tons of research too going on about treatment. I think convalescent plasma has actually helped a lot in recent years, or in this recent year with treatment. And I think there's that other like oral pill that they're still trying to get FDA approval on.
Yeah, they just placed the EUA on that emergency use authorization.
So, I mean, there's, like I said, I mean, we could all sit here and be doom and gloom about it. And like I said, COVID-19 ain't going anywhere for a long time. We're going to see multiple variants across all boards. So it's just a matter of, kind of learning to live with it now. And that's why you got a lot of people crying at the government to say, do something. And it's like, there's nothing that can be done at this point, and there was no way to stop this period. There was no way to stop it. Yeah. It was going to hit. Once this came out, a lot of people denied that it was going to come to our shores, but it was coming, and it was going to.
And that's the dumbest shit. That's the dumbest shit. Who in their right mind thinks that a disease is going to be like part one? It's just isolated in one part of the world. There's no.
Admittedly, it does. Like, I don't know if you remember the Ebola scare in the early 2000s. That was a real thing that a lot of people thought was going to happen. And thankfully, it stayed mostly in Africa. But Ebola is obviously less transmissible than one of the other recent coronavirus, the bird flu, that stayed entirely in China.
Is Ebola a novel virus?
Yeah, it's a novel virus, so it's a bloodborne disease.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But the bird flu had stayed, I think, mostly entirely in China, and that was a coronavirus. And I think the swine flu hit the United States, but it wasn't as transmissible.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've had a lot of different like little tiny pandemics and stuff that disease spreads, but they've been quelled pretty quickly. So it's just a matter of, this is what we're just going to have to live with. We're going to have to live with this probability that we're not invincible. We're subject to this kind of shit, and it's going to be staying with us for a while. And people need to kind of understand what needs to be done. I'm not confident in humanity that a lot of people can do that, but it is what it is. I have a very negative viewpoint on a lot of this, on people in general, and I think it's only been compounded over the recent 2 years. So
you're not alone.
Hence why I don't talk about it, because I hate talking about it.
You're not alone. I mean, growing up, I was an idealist and optimist, and I don't think I could have a lower opinion of humanity at this time. But but I still have those silver linings once in a while. So I'm glad you brought that up because you're right. There are some benefits to that, and even though people, poo-poo on scientists not knowing anything, but we're still gathering data, and we're an impatient society. It's going to take time for us to gather reliable data and study it, and then we will eventually use it to our advantage when we have enough information. So
I'm going to tell you the one place I always go to, and I've told this to a lot of people, especially in the beginning. I've always been a fan of Johns Hopkins University, and I've read their stuff for years, and they've been a really good go-to source for a lot of me finding out what's going on with studies. CDC does a good job of like reporting data, but they don't report. I mean, they have studies every now and then, but I think if you go to like any like university website, especially Johns Hopkins, which I think is kind of paving the way in the United States, I think they do a lot of good practical studies and do a lot of good research. So that's a really good source. I've told a lot of people to go there.
Nice.
Cool.
All right. Well, just like my fatigue for COVID, I have fatigue for this conversation now.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right. This has been a fun show, but as always, it's time to wrap up. So this has been Boss Rush After Dark, the alternative podcast of the flagship show for Boss Rush Network. We'd like to thank you all for tuning in and listening to the show. Thanks again to all of our patrons out there. We appreciate you. Without you, this would not be possible. So keep that light on for us. And before we head out, here's how you can connect with the members of our panel tonight. Stoy, guest of honor, you're up first.
Well, you can follow me on the EXP Cast, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at EXP Cast. I'm also on Arsenal X, and you can follow me on my personal Twitter and Instagram at Stoy MKE8.
All right, Stephanie.
I'm putting it Stoy MKE8 because I want to look at the motorcycles.
Yeah, I got motorcycles on my Instagram.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. No motorcycle pictures though. At Klimov, KLIMOV as in Victor _author. You can also find my articles on busrush.net.
Corey.
You can find me at I am Corey NHD on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find me hosting the Boss Rush podcast and Arsenal X every week.
Right. And as always, you can find me on social media, Twitch, YouTube, and various gaming platforms at X's803, EXODUS803. Also, I am also one of the members of Crossroads PlayStation Podcast, which can be seen Tuesday nights at twitch.tv/X's803 at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. Come back and join us for our next installment of Boss Rush After Dark, where we'll be back with more topics that aren't completely content appropriate for our other anchor shows out there in the Boss Rush Network. We love you guys. We can't do this without you. Thanks. Have a good night.
Good night.
Goodbye.